Above and beyond Blue Bloods, Bridget Moynahan's career is very interesting, very varied, very colorful, and I'm really excited to talk to her about it tonight. So please warmly welcome to the TVLine Spotlight, Bridget Moynahan. Good to see you.
Hello. There's an incredible wind machine right in that door frame that I was feeling very Heidi Klum in there. I don't know if you guys caught that, but thank you.
You all wrapped filming on Blue Bloods back in June. How are you spending your days now?
Oh, I'm spending my days with people like you, talking about the good old days of Blue Bloods. It's been an interesting time. You know, we definitely would be back at work right now. And of course, it's 70 degrees out in New York City these days in November. It would be great to be working around the city. And we all kind of miss it.
Well, just a few weeks ago, you all got together to do the Paley Center event, the entire cast. And then I think that same week, you got together to light the Empire State Building one night. What's it been like being with your cast members again?
So we miss each other. We miss each other. 14, 15 years, depending on who you talk to. We love each other, and I think at the Paley Center we had great conversations, as always, in that venue. And we just went down kind of memory lane and talked about all the, from day one of meeting each other at the family dinner, literally.
That was the first scene you filmed on the first episode.
First scene we ever filmed was the family dinner. I think I met Len that day. I met Will that day. And then we sat down and did that, the first scene ever, and we fell into our roles and fell into those situations of being family immediately. I had a little bit of advantage because I had worked with Donnie Wahlberg before. We already had that brother-sister thing clued in, so.
Who on the cast has been getting the most emotional about the show being over?
Well, I think Tom, I think Donnie, I think me. Vanessa cried 4 times at the Paley Center. It depends on the day and the moment.
What was your personal reaction when you found out that this was going to be the final season?
I don't quite understand it, but it is what it is. I mean, we had incredible ratings.
Friday night's most watched show for as far as I can remember.
Yeah. And I think that there's a loyal fan base that just would make the time on a Friday night to sit down and watch it. And if not, they would make time over the weekend to watch it. And very loyal fans. And interesting that some of those fans were then, their children started watching it. So there was a younger generation coming in and appreciating those, kind of great stories, but also good values on TV. I think it's hard. You're hard pressed to find those values and stories on television right now.
We'll talk more about Blue Bloods in a second, but first I want to know, what was your very first acting role? And I'm talking about like Daffodil number 3 in the spring play.
Okay, well, I was a bat, like a bat in the 3rd row in my school play. And Soldier number 14. But my first film, I was like girl number 3 on a bench. And Amanda Peet was the lead, and I can't remember anybody else in it, but I was just like, I'm so thrilled to be girl number 3. I don't know what happened to girl number 1 or 2, but girl number 3 did okay.
1 and 2, they just knew how to sit on a bench just a little bit better. You started modeling in high school. How did that come to pass? Like, did someone spot you, scout you?
So it was actually, I did 1 semester of college, and it was, I think, the summer before that, my girlfriend Carrie asked if I would drive her to the John Casablanca Modeling Center in Springfield, Massachusetts. So I did, and then as she was talking to Valerie Paul about possibly becoming a model, Valerie turned to me and said, how about you? And I had no interest in that, but I gave it a shot. My parents let me do it. And my first job was, oh my God, I saw the picture today. It was modeling scuba gear. And it was like the tank and like the mask on my head. And
Oh, you mean like scuba gear,
yeah,
not wetsuit?
like, yeah, I was super psyched. I think I got $60 an hour and I thought I had made it. And, you know, it was great. And I thought this is a good gig.
You moved to New York City to pursue modeling. What sort of support system did you have back then?
I had the support of my parents, but honestly, I would never let my child move to New York City to become a model at 16 years old. So I don't know what they were thinking. I remember this so clearly because my father, I was supposed to go to the city with Valerie to go to a modeling apartment, and she overslept. So my dad's dropping me at the train station, and he's like, well, I guess you can't go. I'm like, oh, no, I can go. I have my ticket. I can go. And he's like, did not want to let me go. I got on the train, and he was still on the train when it started moving. I'm like, you have to go now, Dad. And the look on his face, it was heartbreaking. The second he got off, I cried the whole way to New York City, the whole way. And then I got off at Penn Station. You know how chaotic that is. Never been to New York City by myself ever. And I see two police officers across the street. So I grab my luggage and haul it across the street. And I say, do you know how to get to 87th in Lexington? And they're like, where? I'm like, 87th in Lexington? They're like, I don't know where that is. I was like, oh my God. I don't know where I am. So I used my $3 that I had and got into a cab. And I just was so overwhelmed. But, you know, here I am.
I read an interesting quote of yours about modeling, which was, even though you and Kate Moss came up in roughly the same period, you were basically in different genres of modeling. You were selling different things.
Yeah, she was like super sexy, like, I don't know what you would call that, but it was not me. I sold anything clean. I sold pantyhose and, you know, caress before you dress, and, right? You remember that? Hair products, soaps.
You sold health was your quote. You sold health.
Yes, and cleanliness. I was the cleanest model out there.
If you could go back in time and give 18-year-old Bridget any advice, what would you tell her?
Buy real estate in New York. Not shoes, not the designer clothes. Go buy those apartments. That's what I should have done.
Sex and the City, at its zenith, cast you in the role of Natasha Naginski.
Yes.
At first, were you like, are you sure you want me, an Irish girl, to play Natasha?
Right. I remember that audition, and I had 3 auditions that day. And I'm somebody who does not like to be late. So they showed up an hour late for the audition, the Sex and the City people, that I'm like, I'm calling my agents. I'm like, they're not here. I have to leave. I have to go to the other one. They're like, just wait. I'm like, no, I'm going to leave. Thank God I didn't leave. It was 1-line audition, and the line was, nice to meet you. I want you to know I put a lot of work into that line. I had a whole, like, inspiration. Carolyn Bessette was my muse for that line.
It was a weighty moment for Carrie.
Yeah.
Big's fiance, who she had heard of but never met.
Yeah, it was really wonderful. I think, honestly, if you really go back, I probably had about 3 lines in my whole season and a half. It was always like she was spoken about and she was seen, but I really didn't have that much dialogue. But it changed the course. You know, it was one of those roles. That and Coyote Ugly kind of happened at the same time.
Well, you just mentioned Coyote Ugly. That was your feature film debut.
Yes.
With Piper Perabo, Maria Bello, Tyra Banks. That must have been quite the cattle call for that movie. All these upcoming actresses.
Yes. I remember that audition process. We had to dance in the room with all the producers and the director to a Prince song. And thankfully, Prince was my spirit animal in high school. So I knew every lyric. I would dance to that music in my bedroom. So I had that figured out. It was a lot. and it's like intimidating to have to go into a room and dance in front of a bunch of producers.
What were your best and worst memories of that experience, Coyote Ugly?
I would love to do another role like this. I mean, Jerry Bruckheimer, who I did not know at the time, and I did not know that he is a maker of people's careers. So I owe a lot to him for taking a chance on me. There was a producer on that show who, before my audition, actually said, just know that Piper Perabo is a very tough girl, and you are playing somebody who's tougher. So don't let her intimidate you. I was like, okay, I got this. All right, thank you. Like, what a great gift he gave me of that advice. But on that show, they spent time. Not every movie does this, but I had to learn how to clog. And I never took a dance class in my life. So that really was a struggle for me. I had to learn how to bartend, which seemed to come more naturally to me. And work out. They had us training all the time, dancing all the time, and lifting weights and stuff. I don't think I've ever been in better shape than during that time. So to be able to really immerse yourself into a show like that is incredible. And when they put the time into getting the actors exactly where they need to be is such a treat. A lot of dancing. And I hurt my neck on that show from what turned out to be was leather halter tops. Because I was doing somersaults on the bar and then the knot would get into my neck.
Oh, geez.
Don't do that, ladies or gentlemen.
Well, that leads to my next question, which was, here and now, what do you remember most? Cocktail shaker juggling moves or dancing on a bar moves?
I can toss a bottle still. I can do that. But I don't think I want to dance on a bar anymore. I think I would probably throw my hip out and be laid up for months. So
it's very precarious. It's a very narrow runway.
It's a narrow runway. Yeah, that's not my thing anymore.
Was ABC's 6 Degrees, was that your first series regular role?
It was, yeah.
Because that was when...
I can't believe you remember that.
Oh, totally.
I loved 6 Degrees.
That was gone too soon.
We should bring it back. Yes.
Well,
Does anyone have that power in this room?
Well, that was on the heels of Lost. Everybody was trying to come up with their own cool version of a super serialized show. And, that was my question. Did you feel like that show was maybe just a little bit ahead of its time?
I think it was ahead of its time. I really do think we should bring it back. I remember on that show watching, Hope Davis was on that show, and she had 2 small children. And I remember watching her and talking to her. I'm like, God, it's a lot to have kids and be like a lead on a TV show. Cut to, I got pregnant on the show. I mean, not on the show, outside of the show. I don't want to spread that rumor, but then I was like, oh yeah, this is going to get complicated. And I was lucky enough to keep working. But I remember that note. Like, I don't necessarily need, definitely not for my ego, a single female lead position. I like, and that's one of the beauties of Blue Bloods, is that we had such a big ensemble that we had our lives as well. And you had time and you got to play off of a lot of people. Because you maybe don't want to look at me or listen to me all the time for those, 30, 60 minutes. A splash of Donnie or Tom would be great.
Well, that's akin to what Lee Majors told me once, which was never be the in a show. Because he was the fall guy. He was the $6 million man. He said, because if you're the, you're going to be in every scene.
The. I like that. Never be the. That was basically, without knowing, me and Lee have something in common. We figured it out.
In the movie Ramona and Beezus, you played mom to Selena Gomez and Joey King.
I did.
Do y'all still send Christmas cards, or do you keep in touch at all?
Gosh, it has been so wonderful watching those 2 young women. Like, I didn't know who Selena Gomez was at the time, and obviously she's like
Selena Gomez.
She's Selena Gomez now, and I can't imagine growing up in that business at that age. And they're both so grounded. I mean, Selena Gomez was grounded then. I really feel like she still is now. We don't send Christmas cards. I think mine just go to the fan mail. I've gotten signed autographs back. No, so it's nice to watch them grow up, and yet I don't age.
How is that? That's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
All right, it's Blue Bloods time. Tell us how Donnie Wahlberg helped you get on Blue Bloods.
So Donnie and I did a TV show in Boston. I remember I met him, and I kind of had to do an audition meet and greet with him, and so we did it. I got the job, and we shot in Boston, and we kind of played. I think he was my brother-in-law, and I played his sister-in-law, but I guess we had made out or something like that. On screen, not off a screen. Let's keep this clear. And that it didn't get picked up. So when this came around, I had looked at it, but was considering another project. And then he called me and he said, will you please take a look at this project? I'd love to do something else with you. And I said, oh, yeah, I was thinking about that, but I think I might. He's like, please just look at it. I was like, so I reread it again with him in mind and Tom in mind, and said yes. And, like the fact that it got picked up, we shot a pilot, it got picked up and then had all these years is a miracle and a blessing. And we all just are so grateful for it.
How was the role and how was the character first presented to you?
I think in the first episode, it was a little bit harder. And I think especially Donnie's character, it was like a cop that sometimes works a lot out of the box, maybe, of the guidelines and stuff. And that was tamed down. Irish Catholic cop family. I resonated with a lot of the family dynamic and that background, and being a single mom, because Erin Reagan was a single mom, and it felt like something I knew.
What was your first impression of Tom Selleck, TV's iconic Magnum PI?
I had to present something to him a few years back in Miami, an award, and so of course they did the whole the life of Tom Selleck video. I developed a crush on him season 8. I forgot how hot he was, and I would have totally been into him if I wasn't a child when he was it was weird. I've been through therapy for this. Anyway, yes, I don't think I paid much attention to it going in, which was probably helpful.
He's super smart. I was reading his memoir over the winter. He pulled a lot of strings on Magnum. He made a lot of decisions. He was vocal when he didn't like how things were going. He requested changes, and there were a lot of stalemates, and he made sure his voice was known. He knew how to make a successful TV show. He
did, and if any of you are Tom Selleck fans, I highly recommend you reading that book. I got the opportunity to interview him in an environment like this at the 92nd Y. And I dove into that book because obviously I couldn't let my dad down, and I need to know it inside and out. I learned so much about him, which was interesting. I just spent 14 years with him, but I learned more about him in that book. And his journey as an actor, his work ethic, and the lessons he's learned over the years are all in that book. If anyone's a aspiring actor, so worth a read. I pulled so many little gems out of it of I should pay attention to that the next time I'm working on a role. He really took lessons from all these different projects of what to do and what not to do, and implemented them along the way. And Magnum was the first time he could kind of put them all together. And then he brought that to Blue Bloods. So
the memoir actually stops short of his time on Blue Bloods. Are you looking forward to him one day covering that period, or are you a little bit anxious about him Spilling the tea, as the kids say.
Oh, the kids. Could he do it? He could do it. I think that we should all have a chapter in that book, though. I'm sure, like, Donnie has some other tea to spill. I got some tea to spill.
Erin's relationship with Jack is such a touchstone for a lot of viewers, and it's really evolved over the years. You know, they've been divorced since day one. Talk about your working relationship with Peter Hermann, and did you guys know that you were doing something special with those characters and that divorced relationship?
When we started the show, there was no Jack cast. So thankfully, they cast Peter Hermann, who happens to be drop dead gorgeous and so kind, such a good human, cares about his work. We had really special chemistry. He's like a goofball in real life. I mean, I don't know how he and Mariska ever carry on a serious conversation. And that's the thing, it's like he's also drop dead serious and then a total, like, dad jokes all day long. It never ends. So I feel lucky that I had such a good partner in that. And that flirtation or that spark or the conflict lasted. And it only got better. Luckily, we had a writer or two, just like Siobhan. Siobhan loved writing that storyline, and I think it carried on. I think people did appreciate that. I think honestly, it was like the best flirt of any characters on the show.
Oh, totally.
They didn't really flirt a lot, those Reagans.
Well, I said to you last we spoke that, you know, as myself being someone who gets along well with their ex-wife, that I appreciate that the relationship, it's never really been about the particularly ugly moments.
Yeah.
That they kind of like present how a mature divorced couple can get along in front of everybody. And the past couple of years, as you've said, they've been pretty darn adorable with their flirting.
Yeah. And I think they were also vulnerable with each other with the hurt or the mistakes, right? They both owned up to the mistakes they made.
We just passed the 10-year anniversary of John Wick, where you played the late John Wick's wife, Helen.
Yeah.
In flashbacks in 2 of the movies.
That was the gift that kept on giving.
How many days total did you work on the first movie?
I mean, I think 2 days. I saw Keanu at the premiere of the last film, and he's like, "Can you believe we've been doing this for 10 years?" I was like, "We have?" I think I was there 2 days, but okay, yeah, we've been doing this a long time.
Could you have guessed back then that it would turn into a whole franchise and be one of the biggest franchises?
No, I couldn't ever imagine. I thought, well, she's dead, so I guess it's a one and done. But I was thrilled to be on that one, and then I kept coming back. I wonder if they'll have another one. It's like the ghost of Helen.
They got to bring her back, or, give us a prequel series.
Why not?
No, Paramount Plus prequel
Yeah,
series.
they've got great filters.
Show how their bland little marriage was. In the films, you worked with Keanu Reeves, Tim Robbins, Ben Affleck, John Cusack, Will Smith, the irrepressible Tom Cavanaugh.
Colin Farrell.
Name some particularly positive experiences out of all those.
Colin Farrell was such a gem on The Recruit. Same with Gabriel. Colin would make me, and I don't even know if he remembers this, peanut butter and jelly and butter sandwiches. Are you like, does that confuse you? But yes, for some reason, they were very comforting in the winter in Toronto or wherever we were shooting. I think that if you really go back and watch the film, I probably put on 10 pounds from the beginning of shooting to the end. Yeah, investigate that. Will Smith is a joy to work with, a joy. He's so generous, so kind, a joy. I mean, he gave me my nickname Breezy, which Donnie calls me still to this day. I remember my mom came up to set and we were pulling all-nighters, and I would like go pass out in the trailer, and then I'm like, where's my mom? And I'd go searching, and she'd be like sitting by the monitor with Will and his whole crew. I don't know, the hair, makeup, the whoever's, and they were all doing like word games together. And I'm like, Mom, what do you do? She's like, I'll be with you in a moment. And she's like hanging out with Will and his crew. That is one of my favorite memories. And he was, frankly, the first person to call me when, it kind of, I kind of announced that I was having a baby, and he was the first one who called me and said, let's get together.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and he just, was such a great support.
Blue Blood Season 6, Steve Schrirppa joins the show.
The best.
As Anthony, I'm not going to even attempt his last name. Anthony...
Abitamarco.
There you go. How did your job change with the addition of that character and introducing this Anthony-Erin dynamic for the duration of the series?
Forgive me, because I had some great people in my office, like fun, but I feel like they often just cast like, hey, here's a handsome person. Maybe it will be a love interest. That sort of conversation must have been had somewhere. I said, let's get somebody who really looks like he was a New York cop, detective. Let's get somebody New York, and he was the perfect fit. And he loved coming to work. We had the best time.
Your corner of the show is so well defined. Danny would have a storyline and Jamie would have a storyline, but now it's like you always knew that it would be you, and Erin and Anthony would have their little mystery to solve.
Yeah, I did. I feel like, and I think it took a while for Donnie to find, like after Jennifer Esposito left the show. She was so great on the show. She's an incredible actress. But when she went on to do other things, it was like the right fit for him didn't come until Marissa. And then it was like, oh, that makes sense. It just felt like it made sense. The second Steve Schrirppa came on, it was like, oh, it was like a bookend, So yeah, it felt like I finally had a home in my office.
Is there any subset of fans that want Erin and Anthony to end up together? Have you ever heard anything like that?
I don't know. Is that your?
No, I have no idea.
You're like, are you pushing for that?
No. I'm all about Erin and Jack, man.
I know, me too. But I loved how jealous Steve, Anthony was getting. Like he did not like Jack.
Oh yeah,
right.
I just watched that the other day.
Yeah.
The scene where they first met, and it was just like this very ice cold handshake.
Yeah.
Do you prefer when Erin is winning or when she's losing?
When there's a struggle and you're not winning all the time, it's more interesting to dive into those feelings as a character, as a human. And I think that's the most interesting thing than then to have to bring to the family table, right? That you're not always confident, you're not always getting it right, that you are failing and that you have to get over something. Or get through something, or it doesn't work out.
She's really been locking horns with the DA character over the past couple seasons, which has been a lot of fun to watch.
Has it been fun to watch? Because I kept thinking, like, we're always storming about, right? I didn't know if people were like, oh, here are these two going at it again. She's wonderful. She does a lot of theater. Jocelyn, she's a wonderful actress, and it was always so nice to have that powerful energy coming back at you in a scene, right? It was like equal.
Have you ever questioned Erin's point of view on an issue or a topic, kind of like pulled a writer aside and said, can we tweak this a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, I can't remember an instance. I think that's when you have different writers from episode to episode, that you want to make sure that you aren't kind of contradicting yourself from the last episode. But we had a group of writers that were consistent over the 14 years. So they were pretty good about that. But yeah, you do want to make sure that it's making sense.
How would you compare your fashion sense to Erin's, or are they one and the same?
I would say that I really appreciate, this is an Erin outfit, frankly. I was just like, it's easy, it fits. I would say that some of it is very consistent, and then in my real life, I probably put a little bit more edge sometimes, and then sometimes I'm just so down, like, don't even barely get dressed. Like, I kind of dress like a tomboy, if that's a word anymore. I don't know if that's been canceled. I don't know. Like, I dress more like a boy most of, yeah. I don't know. I don't want to get in trouble.
Did wardrobe ever come to you with an outfit and you were like, no?
Ruffles do not look good on me.
This silk tie is just too large.
Ruffles do not look good on me. It's the weirdest thing. They look so good on other people. It's like bangs. Bangs do not look good on me. Bangs and ruffles, that's a nightmare.
Summer of 2020, we had the George Floyd murder and the defund the police movement. You know, it got to a point where even like the writers of SWAT had to issue a statement talking about how they would revisit, how they write their own show. Was there any concerns among your cast? Was there any conversation in the group text about how do we move forward? How does Blue Bloods move forward? Is this show going to change at all?
Well, I think that is probably a really good question for some of the writers and the producers. I do know that we have, the beauty of our show is that we can incorporate current affairs, current events, and a lot of times we're kind of ahead of the curve of the conversation, but we can see it from multiple point of views, from the law point of view, from the police officer on the street point of view, from the police commissioner who has, has to see it more globally, that you do get to see an issue from a lot of different perspectives, and then bring it to the table where we talk about it on a human level with our professional level, point of view coming through. I think that certainly Tom and certainly Donnie definitely was very concerned about any kind of excessive, we wanted to honor the stories, but in a positive way, but a truthful way. I think that the writers did take care in telling stories truthfully, but also I think they did that from the start, right? So.
That season, you actually made your directing debut during the heat of COVID, no less. What sparked your interest in doing that?
I was always encouraged to do it. Steve Schrirppa, huge supporter of me to do that. And Donnie, I think the cast in general was just like, you should get involved in this area. I think one of the reasons why I wanted to get into acting is when I was a model, I really felt like I always wanted to be part of the conversation. And as a model, you're just not part of the conversation. And so getting into acting, you're participating in a give and take on different levels. But as a director, you get much more involved from every angle. And I enjoyed it. I enjoyed working with every single department that honestly I probably took for granted before I became a director, because I would only see the set dressers on that first day of that scene in that new set, or whatever it is. The writers, you wouldn't necessarily have a deep dive into the writing or the casting. Like, I love casting. I love it. I always have. So I got to do that as a director, and I enjoyed it. And I think my fellow actors enjoyed me working with them. So
we're almost done here. The series finale airs sometime in December. I think it's either the first Friday or the second Friday. What are viewers going to be feeling as they watch that episode?
I think that fans will feel somewhat satisfied, but then I think you're going to want more with some of the things that are revealed, that are told, wrapped up, or they're not even wrapped up. That's what I mean. There's nuggets that I think people are going to be like, yes. And then the show's over. I think it's going to be bittersweet in some ways.
Do you think the gang would be game to get together years from now if someone wanted a reunion movie?
Yeah, why not? I mean, we can't have that many years. Some of us,
All right, before we go, got a couple questions from our audience members.
Okay.
Let's see if we can do this lightning round style. Real talk, is it challenging for women in directing / writing / production, or is it equalizing?
I think that I only have experience of directing on a show where everyone was willing and had the desire to support me. I think that there's a lot of opportunity. But yeah, there's still those roadblocks, and there's still those people who don't really want you in the room.
And lastly, what's been the most rewarding part of playing Erin Reagan for 14 seasons? 288 episodes.
Personally, the most rewarding thing is that I got to raise my son in New York City and stay in one place and give him the stability and the community that he has here. So that's most important that this show gave me and my family. And I met my husband here. And so, like, there's a lot of wonderful things that have come out from doing a show for 14 years on the personal level. And I think that almost everybody in the cast can say the same thing. On the professional side, I think that when I speak to police officers, for me, I would just see a cop and I see oh, there's a cop. Like, maybe I should, slow down or whatever. But I see them now as more multi-leveled. Their husbands, their wives, their brothers, sisters, fathers, mothers. Like, they have multi-layered lives just like everybody else. But you don't often think about that when it comes to a police officer because of their uniform. And they have real problems just like anybody else, medical problems or there was a storyline where Danny, I don't know, was he losing his house or there was a financial situation? I don't know. And I thought that was such an interesting storyline. Like, you never really think that way. I don't know. So it just humanized the people behind the uniform. And I think that when they talk to us about the stories that we're telling on the show and thank us, that is really rewarding. And I think it's going to be missed.
Bridget Moynahan, thank you for being part of
Thank
the
you.
inaugural TVLine Spotlight.